another world, I would be another world for you. If you want a universe, I would be a universe for you. Always together with you. Always forgetting with you. Always together with you. Always forgetting with you. If you want a silver moon, I would be a silver moon for you.
Welcome to the 3% podcast, the occasional, sometimes podcast in which we talk about books and industry stuff. And you have a new tattoo, Tom?
I have lots of new tattoos, probably. Since we last did this.
Oh yeah, that's very different. And we're recording on Zoom, so you guys can't see this. This is great radio. But got Lost Wolf across the knuckle.
And then there's crows on my other knuckles. Yeah.
Crows on the other krows. The back of your hand is new.
Those were done. Those I already had.
Okay, I haven't seen them. Anyways, I'm Chad Post from Open Letter Books, joined as always with Tom Roberge from Riff Raff and Mayday.
Right, Mayday has nothing to do with books, but
nothing
sure.
to do with books, but that's okay. I don't think that this podcast always had to do with books.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
But anyways, we thought it's been years. We thought we'd have at least like
over 2 years.
Like truly 2 years. They're like, this podcast became like, for a little while there at the pandemic, everyone would come on and make recommendations and did it that way for a little while. And then I made one crazy music episode in which I interviewed the other Chad Post. And then I don't think we've done it. Oh no, and there's one other one in which there is a interview with about Italian science fiction with Rachel. But that's it for like since the beginning of the pandemic. So we've been very absent.
But you've continued to do 2 months whatever review. Yeah.
2-month review. Yeah, we've kept that going. That was like a lifeline at the beginning of this because we were mid-season when the pandemic hit and everyone was like truly freaked out. And that felt like the most normal thing to do. Although I don't even remember which book it was anymore. There's a lot of good bits with it though, like where I'd show up like taking a shot of whiskey in a robe. Looking like a mess, or like when you did the fake book blogger. But that was really fun. But yeah, we are. So speaking of that, the new season starts next week, and we are doing 2 books actually. Diamela Alteit's Never Did the Fire, and it's the same time. Why am I holding this up? And at the same time, Daniel Hahn's Catching Fire, the translation diary that kind of is the companion to it. So we're going to read them in sequence. And one other thing that we did was we launched a Patreon for the 2-month review to get microphones for Katie and Brian, and to help compensate them if at all possible for all this stuff. So if you want to visit our Patreon, it's just 2-month review. You can support it there. We will have bonus content on there starting on Friday when we're interviewing Danny for a separate like addition to the podcast, and we'll release it there first and then have it on the regular podcast when that comes.
Cool.
Have you read these?
No.
Do you have them? The DML Teats are
is that a why am I blanking on the name of the publisher? Charco book?
Yeah.
I mean, I order almost everything from them, so I probably have it, but yeah.
They do too. They have if you use a number 2-month review on their website, you get 10% off anything for the next 2 weeks. So that's another plug for them. But yeah, DML Teats, someone that I read years and years ago. I had to dig through my basement, every fucking box. It was, of course, the last box of books. 22 cartons that I opened and went through to find her previous books that have been translated, just to try and read some more of it from, a new perspective before we start this. And Jesus Christ, this is like experimentally wild and like as challenging and as abstract and as ambiguous as I remembered it being from 20 years ago. So this will be a really fun season, which we don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I feel like we had very different pandemics because I was still coming to work every day. I didn't have to like sit at home for 6 months or whatever, like most people.
We weren't allowed on campus at all until the summertime. And then it was, you had to get, for a long time, you had to get permission. I had to like ask for permission and text the head of like the, whatever, I don't know, like the facilities, and he would have to come let me in.
Mm-hmm.
and unlock the doors because everything was locked up, and none of our keys would work.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. No, I was here every day. At first, just sort of working through a very jury-rigged, like online, commerce thing that they didn't have. My website before just didn't have an online commerce thing. I don't use the ABA's thing, and I didn't care about it. Frankly, I was more concerned with like the physical space. And then the pandemic hit, and I still didn't want to use the ABA thing. Plus, I think there was like a wait list, and then so I just sort of put something together myself with the help of this guy who had worked for Ingram on their data side, and he helped me basically get all the metadata.
Oh yeah.
For all the titles that are literally like the ones that are in my inventory, and so I export my inventory, put it through like this FTP site that he created for me. And then I take those files and upload them into my website. And so it updates the inventory. So only things you see on my website are things that are in the store or have been in the store. That's it.
Right.
So you won't be finding Stephen King and Rand. You can't order anything the way you can through ABA's, what the hell is it called?
Bookshop?
No, not that one, but the other one that other people use. Indie Commerce?
Indie Commerce?
Sure.
Oh, wow. Oh, man.
And then Bookshop, of course, which basically just, if it's at Ingram, you can order it, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do that. So anyway, but yeah, I was here every day, like fulfilling orders and surrounded by piles of books, and nothing was getting shelved. And the bar was basically just, just
empty,
inoperable. And so.
Man, so are things back to normal? I have two questions about that. One is like, what are things like now for the store and for like the customers, the like loyal customers, are they all coming back? And the second question is, did the fact that you had to do the online orders lead to like more consistent online orders even now that you're reopened, or was that just like the early pandemic part and now people just come in the store?
So I feel like it's almost back to normal. I think that last little surge in January, February, after like a really good holiday season, sort of put a damper on things for a little bit. So like January and like part of February were kind of, dreadful. And then like mid-February, early March, it started feeling more normal. Now it feels, in some ways it feels a little better, but it's hard to know. The numbers are better, but I still feel like it's not quite what it used to be. Like the overall numbers are better, but I don't feel like it's always consistently like what it used to be. And it's hard to pinpoint why that is. Part of it could be just that I think like you're talking about like regular customers. There are a lot of my regular customers who used to come in, buy books, and then sit down and have tea or coffee or whatever. Mm-hmm. Some of them are still sort of leery for whatever reason, family, underlying health conditions, whatever. And they'll come in and buy books, but they don't hang out.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then there are definitely regulars who I just don't see anymore. And I don't know, they could have moved away during the pandemic. Like, I have no idea, right? Like, but, I've got new regulars and I've got new customers and different customers and that sort of thing. And like over time, and I think especially because of what was happening at the beginning of the pandemic with all of the, Black Lives Matter and all of that sort of stuff, defund the police, because of my sort of activity in that here in Providence and just sort of, I think I was already sort of known for carrying those kinds of books.
Yeah.
I have more of those customers who now, are like regular customers from that sort of circle, right? Like, yes, all of the literature is kind of what it was, but nonfiction constantly changes, right? Like based on what's going on in the world and that sort of thing. So I think, does it feel back to normal? Yeah, mostly. I think I'll probably have my best year ever this year, if everything holds out. So
yeah.
As for the online stuff, look, I'm not going to take it down, but is it making me money when you factor in like the costs of like the website itself and like what I pay this guy for the FTP thing and all of that? I definitely make money, but it's I'm lucky if I get 2 or 3 orders a day.
Yeah.
And most of them are like pickup. They're just coming to pick up, which is fine. But yeah, I'm no longer shipping books all over the country the way I was, in July of 2020.
And God knows if you can even ship anything. We have, or how long it takes nowadays. It seems to take forever.
I use the USPS, and I don't use media mail, so that helps. Media mail just slow death, like God knows.
So I have a story. I have a bunch of fucked up stories I can share with you and the audience. One of them, though, is that we haven't received mail in like a month. I don't know where it is. I don't know where it's going. Specifically know that Caroline Casey sent us these books for the 2-month review. They're somewhere. I've been to every mail part on campus, and nobody has any mail for us or have any idea why we would not be receiving anything. The only thing we've received are 2 packages that were returned because someone moved and changed their address. So mail to me is like a non-existent thing right now. I don't even know.
I will say
that someone has like 20,000 galleys like stashed somewhere on this campus.
If they were shipped media mail, like they could be literally anywhere. Like
I asked one guy and he said they might be in the river. And I was like, hey, I think you're joking, but you're not selling it. You're not making me feel better.
Riveting podcast material here.
It does point to like the biggest problem right now. The biggest problem on the publishing side of things for the industry is getting things printed. I don't know if this is going to trickle down and affect you in any way, shape, or form from the bookstore side, but everything's delayed. And like when we won the National Book Award for translation, we sent that book off, whatever was that, like end of October, beginning of November, somewhere in there. Yeah. We sent it off the day that it won with the sticker to get printed, and we didn't get copies until end of January.
Yeah. It doesn't, on my end, it's just like the book just shows up 3 weeks later than what I thought the pub date was going to be.
Or 6 months.
Nobody is really paying attention to, so it's no big deal. Look, I don't know how much you want to get into this and how much trouble you might get into.
Okay.
But you're a distributor. Have you heard all these complaints?
No, I have not. Let's do this.
What? Oh,
I've been, we should talk about the Dalkey thing at some point in time. I am so fucking busy. Like it's too much. And like everything's been too much. So I haven't been paying attention.
So, maybe it's just me and other booksellers who talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
But I also talk about it with I have an Ingram rep who lives in Providence and comes in all the time. He's not my rep. He does special markets type stuff. But he gives me I'll tell him all my problems with, so it's specifically the IPS side. The Ingram wholesale is largely fine. They've tweaked some things. The minimum is now higher. They fucking charge you shipping on the most random dumb shit. And they're just tacking on fees left and right. And it's annoying, but it is what it is. IPS, so this, obviously. All IPS got moved to one warehouse, right?
Yep.
That one warehouse, I think, is completely overwhelmed.
Yep.
Partially due to expanding responsibilities, and partially due to ongoing, pandemic issues with staff, calling out sick and that sort of thing, needing to take the 5-10 days, whatever it is at this point. And then part of it is they probably don't pay very well, and they're having a hard time hiring people. They have been telling me since before Christmas last year that they're working on these issues and training staff and getting things better. Every IPS shipment, what used to take me 2 days to get a book now takes at least a week.
Yep.
At least. So there's that.
See, they told us that, but they span it as a positive.
How on earth is that a positive?
It could be 2 weeks.
Okay. It's no one takes.
We're working on these issues, and if you can get your books in here sooner, it'll make things better for us.
Right. No, and then the other issue is every fucking box has errors.
Oh,
Every single box. And you order 3 of something, they send you 1. You order a book, they don't send it to you at all. Right? They stick in a packing slip and then another packing slip that have different information on them.
Wow.
And then you're just like, what the fuck? What was I supposed to get? What did you think you sent me? Where is this thing that you think you sent me? And so, and they have this online thing where you go and report it. And then so at most other publishers, when you report a missing or damaged book, they ask if you want a replacement, right? And they just instantly do it, take care of it, no cost to you, right? It's just done. Ingram cannot figure out how to do that. And so I have to go back into my system, cancel the original order, put it back on order. And then maybe like a month later, they'll give me credit for what was missing.
Holy shit.
It's fucking insane. The amount of time we are all wasting dealing with IPS just errors is insane. And they keep saying it's getting better, it's getting better, it's getting better. And I'm like, it's not. It's actually getting worse. So
we every once in a while we get like an email that's like an update. And
yeah, I wouldn't believe any of that.
I don't believe any of it. Like, the last one though was one of the main VPs that's always the one who like shows up at our sales conference and is like, hey guys, it's all cool. Don't worry, man. And like people get upset and he's like, it's fine. Don't, chill. He retired.
Oh. The real issue is, and I hate doing this, but like there have been books that like just weren't in the box. Like 3 copies of a new thing to go on display. And I look up what it is and I'm like, you know what? I'm just not reordering that book. Yep. And look, it's not going to happen like a Dalkey book or an open letter book. Like I'm still going to order that, right? But if it's like some other press that I was maybe giving a chance to and blah, 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 I'm just not. It's just not. And that is where I feel like you as publishers should be leaning on IPS to fix these fucking problems.
So later. We do have sales conference next week, virtual again, because they'll never meet in person for the history of this of the world, I think. And that's all jacked up for different reasons. But they do have a publishers meeting as part of that. I can bring all these complaints up.
I mean, I feel like I thought you all knew this and were like incensed about it.
Sort of know, and sort of like have to just keep your head down, because right now, like a bunch of our books were that we sent to get printed in October showed up in March. So like we just keep having to delay things so much that at this point it's like I don't even know if I can complain about that, because I can't even get shit there. Like Black Village, the Lutz Batsman book, a film by Victor Katala, and Thank You for Not Reading by Dubravka Greshik all had to be bumped because it took 5 months to print them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, anyway, it's very frustrating to deal with IPS, and it affects the orders, which should be the thing that matters most, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a couple months of sales to catch up on, but we were having like about the same year as the year before. So there hadn't been like any precipitous problem aside from like, and it's basically the same, especially if you add in the books that were supposed to come out in December, January, February, but came out in March, April, May. So, but it doesn't seem too bad. The Dalkey thing, on the other hand, that's a wilder situation, because to use as a segue a printing issue, I referenced this in the last and only blog post that I've written, but there's a book that we're doing. So Dalkey is being relaunched, for anyone who doesn't know. Jon died suddenly at the end of November. I don't think we've talked about this, have we?
I mean, we've texted about it, but
yeah. So he was going to sign. He signed. It took forever. 2 years of working with him and of kind of like figuring out how to make this work. But he signed an agreement that would give the press to Deep Vellum with the understanding that I'd oversee the editorial side of things. And he signed that, and it was like, and then 6 months later, the actual agreement would be signed. It was just like a letter of intent. And then, in the ensuing 6 months, you'd get like all the inventory and the banking information and the debt owed and all that kind of stuff. But he died the next day. And so none of that was like really clear or available. So we've been working through like all of the books that he had signed on. We found out one that we printed actually never had a contract, because the week before he died, they didn't agree on something. And so he's like, okay, I'll cancel it. And then died. And none of us knew that because it's like in his email. It's been a trip to figure out what the fuck's going on, but we're relaunching with three series actually, but 2 main ones. New books like Emily Hall's The Long Cut, the Sorokin Therefore Hearts, those ones that are like either written originally in English or being published in translation for the first time. A lot of interesting stuff that Jon had signed on, 2 things that we signed on to like pad it up. that kind of thing. Then the other more kind of exciting to me, at least, aspect is reissuing 20 books a year from the backlist as like an essential series. So all the great books like the Final Brian books, The Tunnel, Making of Americans, Eros the Bittersweet, like all the big hit classics that, to be honest, one reason we're doing it is because we don't have files for anything. There are no printer files for, out of the 1,000 backlist published titles, there are like 16 that one printer has and about 40 that are in LSI. Where are the other ones?
That's insane.
Yep. So I've been spending endless amounts of time getting these books scanned in, taking like an unformatted document, fixing that up, proofreading it, getting it laid out, and then having someone else proofread it so that they can be clean. And along the way, one of the books that we were working on, this is where I was going to segue through, was Antagony by Luis Guidasolo. And the first volume of that, it's a 4-volume book that was always meant to be one big volume, and it's printed as one big volume in Spain now, but originally came out over like 6 years in 4 separate pieces. And so for whatever reason, Jon wanted to do it as 4 different volumes. So he did the first volume like 7 years ago. And so when we went to like recoup and finish 2, 3, and 4, it was like, man, if we just put out volume 2 like 7 years after volume 1, this is going to be insane. Like nobody's going to go back and buy that. Nobody's going to know what to do with this. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So we put it all together, and I spent like last summer and fall, like I can't even tell you how long editing that translation and reading. I was in Spain for a good part of it, and I was talking to people in Spain, and they're like, we've never read that book in full. Like it's one of these like important, like monumental books that they use in like various university settings that replace like Don Quixote as like a required reading for certain things. And they're all like, man, no, it's so long. Like, we can't get through that. It's so long. I'm like, motherfuckers, I'm going to be the only person who reads this. So I get it done. We get everything approved. It gets laid out. It's all ready to go. And when we contact the printers, every last one of them said they couldn't print it because it was too big. They weren't accepting jobs of that size until October of this year.
Well, at least it's done.
It's sitting there. It's sitting there. We did finally find someone that's finally going to print, but it's like, it also, the cost of that has skyrocketed. It's at least 3 times what it was 2 years ago. So that book is going to cost $10 a copy to print.
You sell it for $35 though, or something, right?
I think that. Oh, well, Consortium said that's not feasible. I think they said the highest you could ever have it is $26.95. Or something like that. Otherwise, no one's going to buy it. No one will carry it.
How much is the NYRB
anniversaries?
Yeah, anniversaries.
Isn't it $30 for the set?
Oh, my inventory is not connected. Hold on.
I can look.
Yeah, I feel like it's more than $30.
I think that's longer too.
It's longer, you're saying?
Yeah. The box set, well, this is on Amazon, so let's see where it says, is $45.
Why is it in like you can't go above $26.95? Like
I think that was during our pre-sales meting. They were like,
you're the publisher. You can fucking tell them what price.
We're gonna have to do a price change on that one because initially if it was going to be like $4 for each copy to print, that's one thing, but this is very different.
I mean, this is not a book where like casual readers are going to be looking at it and then decide to buy it or not based on the price.
Right. I agree.
People who want this are going to spend $40, and that's fine.
I agree. And it is really an amazing book. It was part of the music episode that I did with interviewing the other Chad Post, is reading part of that, because it reads so much better when you hear it than like trying to read it on the page. Like it's a very vocal sort of book. It's interesting. But anyways, that is one of like, I think 5,000 page books that we have lined up for the next year and a half, including Miss Macintosh, My Darling, the longest book ever written by a female, supposedly. And a Catalan book that's like 1,500 pages. That's going to be followed by another book by the same author that's over 2,500 pages, but is 5 volumes. Will's doing through Deep Vellum that God, what's his name? Orbitar is the book, but the Romanian writer. I'm blanking out, that wrote Blindness, Mercedes Cartarescu. And I think there's one more that I'm forgetting. Oh, aside from Miss McIntosh, Gertrude Stein's Making of Americans, also right around there. So like a lot of these big ass books to deal with.
Yeah. I can't say that customers, flock to these things, but maybe that's not.
Well, now I'm gonna make them.
Publishing and literature are two different things. So yeah.
But meanwhile, like all the new books are all like super thin.
Yeah.
I've been whipping through those and like, okay, I can do this. And then it's like Sotweed Factor, I'm still fixing because it's in my form now in the Word file, it's 880 pages long. And I have to fix every single fucking quotation mark that's wrong, that's backwards from the scan or whatever.
So I just turned in a translation, and it's like a nonfiction thing. And there was like, I don't know, 10 pages of bibliographic information. And so the French don't use quotation marks. They use those stupid carets, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I tried to like, instead of going through and fucking doing everything, I tried to use like the auto correct. Yeah. And it worked on one side and then it didn't work on the other. And I was like, somebody else can sort this out. Like, because I mean, I've worked for a publisher. They have macros that go through a Word file and fix these things in a way that I don't have time for. Do you know what I mean?
And that's what my plan was, to build a bunch of stuff based on doing Sotweed Factor. Exactly. And so far I've been basically doing it manually, find and replace stuff because it was like a little bit quicker. But nevertheless, like, yeah, I have to build a bunch of those. We are working with someone who's helping with that too. So
yeah, there are people whose job is to do exactly this, and they're very good at it in a way that, like, yeah. Because I'm sure I would miss one, and it was like, I'd rather have somebody be paying attention to it as opposed to me paying attention to it.
Exactly. So what books have you been big on?
Oh God. Man, we haven't really talked in a while. So I feel like we texted about this a little bit, that ELADATL book, the East Los Angeles Air Dirigible Transit Line.
I remember
the Lights book. Yeah.
Is it good?
It's like Pynchon almost. Like, it's just fucking brilliant. It's a little different because every chapter or whatever is like slightly, it's different in format and different in point of view. Mm-hmm. Because it's like a fake history of this anarchist blimp transit line, right? So you get different points of view, but you also get like, because it's supposed to be a fake history, you get like, fake ephemera, like customer service call logs and things like that. And so it's a little different from Pynchon in that way, but in terms of like the energy and like the just off the wall, whatever, like there's like that underlying like humanity that Pynchon has and everything. Like, it's crazy, but like everything is working towards like this like underlying belief that the world could be better if only whatever X, right? And yeah, I loved that book. I read that last year.
What's the full title of it again?
It is ELADTL. ELADATL? ELADTL. I'm blanking on exactly what the Sesshu Foster, and I can't remember the other author's name.
Found it.
Am I right?
Yeah, it's
ELADATL.
ELADATL, A History of the East Los Angeles Dirigible Air Transport Lines. And the authors are Sesshu Foster and Arturo Ernesto Romo.
Yeah.
That's wild. I remember you telling me about this and I thought it sounded amazing. And then I never got it. I think it just like left my mind entirely.
Right. Honestly, trying to think of what else I've read that I would like love. I've started and put down so many books lately.
Yeah.
I mean, weirdly, I'm reading a book about the fucking Velvet Underground right now. Like, like why? I don't know, but like,
Did you read that the take down the book Everything and Less from Verso about Amazon and Amazon's influence on contemporary writing?
No.
It's really good. It's by Mark McGurl, I think is MCGURL. I haven't finished it because I have too many other things, but it's really interesting. Like in this way that it takes the idea that because everything's available on Amazon, the idea that Amazon then imparts through that implicitly to like the world of literature is that more is automatically better, and the more variations on the same thing are better, that we end up creating like so much extra stuff, and that it's like and within those subcategories becomes like exponential. And part of like he looks a lot at like romance writing, and then also like says like the most contemporary, he had written a book before, I guess, that was like MFAs are ruining contemporary fiction, and now he's like Amazon's ruining contemporary fiction. I was like, sure, yep, you're right. But he looks at like too that the major the new American model for contemporary writing is the trilogy. Everything falls into a trilogy.
Right. I get so, I don't know if you still have like whatever open submissions or whatever through Open Letter, and you used to send me like back crazy whatever, but I get emails like once a week, some self-published or like whatever vanity published sort of thing, and so many of the ones that are like these genre things are like part 2 in the, and I'm like, dude, I did not, what is part 1? I don't care. Like, this is not,
No.
It's always, you're right, it's always part of a trilogy or a tetralogy or something, right? They're trying to hook you. And
even like the Jon Fosse book, Septology, published as a trilogy.
Right.
Can't stop.
I know, somebody came in the other day and was trying to order it, and I was like wrapping my head around like also because on the covers, it's not entirely obvious what's going on, and I'm just like, oh God. Like,
yeah, I agree. I had my students read that. I apologize to everyone that's listening that is a fan. And my students read that last semester, and it was the one book that they're like, we don't even want to talk about it. We hate this.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about
it's such a particular,
it's a particular taste.
Very particular taste, and very, very like kind of male.
Yeah, you got to be in the right mood. For sure.
In the right male European mood. Yeah, we are reprinting Trilogy though, and some of his other books, the earlier ones that Dalkey did. And Trilogy is like his first novel that he wrote after writing all the plays. It's actually, it is a trilogy. It is 3 books that he wrote. So to tie this theme in,
Boatman or something, or
the boat one is separate. That's separate. This is like the 3 books are like Wakefulness, Olav's Dreams, and Weariness are the 3 titles included in it. And they all do kind of relate, but they're much more like a Beckett play, or like in that style. And I find it much more interesting. Like that and Melancholy I like the best. And like the Septology, I find like you have to be in the mood, and it is a little bit like, yeah, you gotta be ready. And patient. Right. Very patient.
Yeah.
The other book that my students did not care for this semester was Lady Joker. But their explanation was fine. So like a couple of people liked it and thought it was entertaining and interesting. They all thought it was really well translated, but because it's only part of the book, it's only volume 1, like it just ends. Like it doesn't have like even a cliffhanger.
And we're like, you know what? This is where we're stopping.
Yeah, that's what it feels. It's like, okay, this is that part. So they were like, it's so confusing because like you don't get to anything. Like the sort of event happens, but like there's no like there's so many characters in the like the second half of the first volume that are kind of going around like figuring out the same things that we already know, but for each one of them. So it's like it has got a little bit of like particular structure to it that I think will be even more interesting when I get to read volume 2. But for volume 1, it is a little bit tricky, I think, for that situation.
Yeah, but I that reminds me of my reaction to the Dune movie when I saw it. I didn't know it was going to be a 2-part movie.
Oh, right.
And so I just watched it and I was like, wait, what? What the fuck? Like I wish I didn't know going in that it was going to be.
Yeah, I didn't know that until someone mentioned
Lady Joker says volume 1 on it, right?
So Lady Joker, this is interesting. I was just in London for the book fair. The British version of it doesn't reference volume 1 anywhere on the cover or in the jacket copy, but does at the end of the book. It says end of volume 1, but nowhere else would you be aware of that.
That is some bullshit. Pissed if I picked it up and then like the last page just says end of part 1. The unexpected cliffhanger on an episode of Twin Peaks or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. There is. I did start the new. What's interesting about that though is I started the new David Peace book, Tokyo Redo, and it's almost the same, like what you had mentioned of like how Lady Joker reminded you of him. This is very much because it's set in Japan. It's about like a similar sort of crime, and like has the same pacing and same sort of like repetition, like as if he's, I mean, it's not like they're the same, but they're very similar. Like it's feels like it's going back into this world. Although the David Peace one is a little bit more clear in terms of like what certain things are. Like it explains a bit more than Lady Joker does.
Yeah.
About, I mean, like, society.
There's an appeal to both, I thought. Like when I was reading Lady Joker, like there was something about just reading this like long section about a particular character and then getting it to the end of it and just knowing that like it was really fun to like be in their little world, but it didn't, like it matters, but I don't really need to know what it is, right? And that's kind of comforting or something. And then you read David Peace and it is, like there's a trajectory, right? Like shit, it makes linear sense and he's driving towards something. And even if you don't know what it is, like you can appreciate every step along the way. With Lady Joker, it's kind of like ambiguous which direction it's going in any moment. So,
and what's weird is they're both based on real crimes
that
actually took place that were unsolved in both cases too.
I mean, I probably prefer David Peace's style a little bit more. Just, I don't know. I mean, the Red Writing books are just so fucking good.
So good. God, I want to reread those. Those are so fun.
Yeah.
Ever have time.
I know. I never have time to reread anything these days.
No, I mean, that's why I'm using this, reading all the reissues, either proofing them or doing it, because then I get to reread Wittgenstein's Mistress for the first time in 20 years. At Swim Two Birds, Eros. I hadn't read that in
I haven't read Eros in forever. I don't think I have a copy. I was looking.
There's gonna be a brand spanking new edition soon. That's off at the printer. So
the new covers look great, by the way.
I like the Essentials covers. I think I like them, but I also like I've become sort of the grumpy don't give a shit about cover stuff anymore. Like I just turn it over to everyone and like, you guys make decisions, pick out what you want. I know what you cool.
Like, I just don't like. I know when I see a cover I hate.
Yeah.
Right? It's like everything else sort of like looks like 90% of like everything that like New Directions, Transit, and like all those you guys put out are all just sort of a piece to me at this point.
Yeah.
But when you get like the occasional just truly awful cover and you're like, oh God, why did I order this book? Like,
yeah.
No one can pick this up.
Yep.
Yeah.
What do you think of so I saw this on your and there's one sitting right here, the Fum de Estampa books.
I mean, I haven't read them yet. Everyone who's read them and like reported back on them seems to really, really like them. They fit in with my aesthetic here, and like the specificity of the nonfiction, especially, I think, is really interesting.
Right, I got one of those.
Because you don't usually get things like that from these like small startup publishers. That, you know, I feel like I say this all the time about like art. It's like you can make things universal by paying attention to the really personal, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like they've chosen these memoirs and whatever essay collections that sort of really hone in on that sort of thing. Like here's a particular lived experience from a point in time,
right?
But there's the potential for it to mean a whole lot to like the world, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, I mean, maybe it's not the best sort of analogy, but the Viktor Frankl book, right? Like, you know, like his story about being in an internment camp becomes like the most like revered, you know, what's the word? Like, you know, inspirational sort of book to come out of that. And yeah, like just by being so personal and honest and all of that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
So I think I like their editorial direction, I think, quite a bit.
Yeah, me too.
I'll need to like pick one up and dig into it. But
I think we're going to be working together on a few things. Maybe like publishing some of their stuff here or our stuff there, or finding joint projects in the future. I really like Doug Settle that runs it. He's really nice.
I mean, in general, I just like when people pick a thing and do it and it's like don't care about like the outside sort of influence or whatever, right? Like nothing feels like it's had influence from like some distributor or some other larger publisher or whatever. It just feels like they're just doing their thing, and you either
doing
like
what he wants to do. Lives in the countryside outside of Barcelona and is just doing it.
Right. Yeah. I kind of like that.
I like it too. I like it quite a bit. There is, man, it reminds me that I have like so many good juicy stories for this podcast that at some point in time I can actually do, ranging from like our announcement of our translator triptych idea to like what happened with this Basque book that we were doing, and a fallout with like a multiple translator situation, like lots of good gossipy stuff. But I forget that since we don't do this, I never share that information in any way with anyone anymore.
I'm so far out of any gossip circles at this point.
I know. The only thing I do is every once in a while I'll go on Twitter and find that everyone's pissed about something and
Right.
subtweeting, and I have to like do goddamn fucking detective work because no one's bold enough to just like state who it is they're talking about.
Right.
And it drives me insane. And I'm like, oh well, this is a story like from 4 weeks ago that got everyone upset.
Yeah, I only know about Twitter things when like it's so bad that like Sparks sends me like a screenshot. That's it. So otherwise, I just like I'm totally oblivious to all of it. And gotta be honest, it's really nice. Like
I know. I know.
Like all this big shit, like with the free speech and whatever. I'm sure it must be awful to read through so many fucking self-righteous booksellers feeling the need to like throw their opinion in on the matter. And it's like
I spent at least an hour reading all of those and like trying to decipher what
I just like
going on,
where it
came from, what was the argument really.
Public debate needs to happen for sure, right? I just don't know if one, Twitter is the best place for that. That's certainly debatable. And two, it just like I feel like it's just everyone just echoes each other in the same way. And because it's online, because it's digital and not like people sitting in a room debating these things, it just doesn't feel productive.
No.
To me. And I just feel like there's gotta be better ways to like unravel all these things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Oh man. So I'm gonna have to go because I have to go to a lunch meeting, but maybe we can do something like this again or do some variation so people don't hold your breath, but like at some point there'll be more podcasts forthcoming.
Yeah. Wow, look at you with your fancy lunch date.
I know. Well, with Brian. Brian.
Oh.
we gotta get him some books, find him some work.
Is this a free martini lunch type thing? Or
I hope so. Fucking I got a little petty cash from my last sales. Like, yeah, we didn't talk about that either, like going to AWP or London Book Fair and how weird that was. AWP was specifically bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, I would have no use to go to AWP, but
I had to go because we don't have anyone else.
Right.
Anthony quit. So I was like, well,
what was I going to ask you? You going to Winter Institute next year?
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, I plan on it, but like, we're not having an Alta conference. So like, I don't have any faith that things are like going to happen again.
Right.
But hopefully they will. I prefer to go do things in person again and not be in this space anymore of like, of pure like reactionary fear decisions and like, things like that. I prefer just be like, okay, we've done that. Let's move on.
Wish it wasn't Seattle. I mean, I might not be a member of the ABA at that point, so it doesn't matter. But Seattle, one, we were just there.
Yeah.
And that's that is easily the most expensive version of Winter Institute for me coming from here.
Same.
So it's not ideal.
Actually, the worst was the Alta conference that was in person last fall that had like 120 people that came or whatever, was in Tucson. Tucson is the hardest and most expensive place to get to from Rochester, it seems.
Interesting.
I don't know. I mean, it's because there's like no connect, and my flights all got canceled too. There's like no real good, clear path. And it's like, it costs more for me to go to Tucson than it did for me to go to Madrid.
Right. Also, I feel like, I mean, here's my conspiracy theory. I feel like Winter Institute just kind of settled on Seattle because of the bookstore that's there and what's his face who's on the board.
Rick?
No. The other guy.
Robert?
Yeah, Sindelier.
Yeah. Interesting.
That's my conspiracy theory.
I think we should do another podcast at some point of just pure publishing conspiracy theories. It can come up with whatever kind of shit we want.
I mean, I guess it would have been too much to ask them to do it in like Philadelphia, right? That would have been.
That was where AWP was. The best thing about AWP was that the fact that I still have not officially ever had COVID. I may have at the beginning, but wouldn't know. But like, I guess there's a big breakout there where a lot of people ended up getting COVID and I did not, because I went to 0 poetry readings. And the vast majority of it came to poetry readings. So
right.
My Philistinism is like, there's a lifesaver, I suppose.
Right. Yeah.
Anyways. Okay, man, I'm going to let you go. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Any other recommendations or rants you want?
I feel like I just
Thank you.
launched a pretty large conspiracy theory, so I'll leave that there.
Perfect, man. Okay, I'll talk to you soon.
All right, later.
If you'll be my lonely girl, I would be a lonely boy for you. If you want a shooting star, I would be a shooting star for you. If you want another